Hi all, today I want to talk to you about blood types. I'll be discussing the ABO blood typing system, which is the most common way to identify what blood type a person has. Okay, so what are blood types? Everyone has a blood type. There are some rare blood types, let me know if you want a video about that. And your blood type is determined by your red blood cells. Red blood cells are a component or a part of your blood, so let me know if you want a video on that as well. And red blood cells have antigens on them, which will determine your blood type. Your blood type can be A, B, AB, or O, and then it can be positive or negative. And sometimes your blood type can actually have impacts on interesting things, like some studies have suggested that type O blood makes you more attractive to mosquitoes. But some studies have also suggested that type O blood makes you less susceptible to contracting COVID-19. So what are antigens? Basically, antigens are markers. They can be made of protein, lipids or fats, sugars, carbohydrates, or even nucleic acids like DNA. The immune system reads these markers, and then it uses those antigens to determine whether something is self or non-self. So this is how the immune system knows not to attack the body. Of course, there are exceptions, like if someone has an autoimmune disorder. If you'd like to hear more about those exceptions, let me know and I'll make a video about it. Now, red blood cells have antigens on their surface, and these antigens are what determines a person's blood type. There are 3 antigens that determine a person's blood type. 2 of them are easy to understand, A and B, and the third is a bit more confusing and is called RH. RH is the one that determines whether someone's blood type is positive or negative. So to understand blood types and how our blood type is determined, we have to talk about genetics for a second. So in genetics, one common theme is that traits are passed from the parent to the child through the DNA. So for each gene, which is a segment of DNA that determines a trait, each person gets 1 copy per parent. Therefore, each person has 2 copies of each gene, 1 from each parent, barring exceptions. Let me know if you want a video about the exceptions. Some traits are dominant, which means that if you have even 1 copy of the gene that codes for that trait, you will have that trait. Other traits are recessive, which means you will only have that trait if both copies of your gene code for that trait. So one example of dominant versus recessive genes is whether you're able to roll your tongue. The dominant gene is that you are able to roll your tongue. The recessive gene is that you are not able to. So what happens is if you get 1 copy of the gene that allows you to roll your tongue, you will be able to do so. But if neither of your genes code for the ability to roll your tongue, you won't be able to. So the reason I wanted to explain that is whether our red blood cells have or do not have a given antigen on their surface is determined by the genes we receive from our parents. The gene that codes for the A antigen is dominant. The gene that codes for the B antigen is also dominant. So at this point you might be wondering, what happens if you get 1 A gene and 1 B gene, 1 from each parent? Well, a slightly more advanced topic in genetics is codominance. With codominance, 2 different dominant traits are inherited from parents, and both traits are exhibited rather than just 1. A and B genes are codominant in this way, so if you get 1 A gene from your mom and 1 B gene from your dad, you will have A antigens and B antigens on your red blood cells. So if you have a copy of the A gene and a copy of the B gene, you get both antigens. And this blood type is known as AB because the person has both A and B. If you only have A antigens, you have type A blood, and the same goes for type B blood. However, there is also a recessive gene. The recessive copy of this gene gives you neither A nor B antigens. Therefore, if you have 2 copies of the recessive gene, you have neither of these antigens on your red blood cells, and this blood type is known as O. So if you have 2 of the O gene, you have type O blood, where you don't express either antigen. If you have 2 of the A gene, you have the A antigen. If you have 1 A gene and 1 O gene, you still have type A blood because you still have the A antigen. And if you have 1 A gene and 1 B gene, you'll have type AB blood because you have both antigens. So what about the Rh antigen? There's a whole family of Rh antigens known as the Rh blood group system. If you want a video about the Rh blood group system, let me know, just like all the other ideas. But the most important member of this family is Rhd, so that's what we'll be focusing on for now, and I'll just refer to it as Rh antigen or Rh factor. So if a person has the Rh antigen, also known as the Rh factor, they have a positive blood type, and if they don't have it, they have a negative blood type. The Rh factor is dominant, so only one copy of the gene that codes for it is needed. And partially because of that, 85% of people in the world have a positive blood type. So what makes the Rh factor different from the A and B antigens? The Rh antigen is a little bit more complicated than the A and B antigens. So usually when a person is pregnant with a fetus that has a different blood type than they do, it isn't a problem. For example, if a mother has B positive blood and her baby has A negative blood, there will not be an issue. However, if an Rh negative person is pregnant with an Rh positive fetus, their immune system might react by attacking what it believes to be an invader. In such an event that the person carrying the fetus has a negative blood type and the fetus has a positive blood type, the pregnant person has to actually be given a medication called RhoGAM. And what RhoGAM does is it suppresses the production of antibodies in the parent that would attack the fetus otherwise. So to put it all together, to determine a person's blood type, 3 things must be known. Do they have A antigens? Do they have B antigens? And do they have Rh factor? If a person has A antigens but no B antigens, and they do have Rh factor, their blood type is A positive. Likewise, if a person has no A antigens, no B antigens, and no Rh factor, their blood type is O negative. Incidentally, O negative is the universal red blood cell donor type. If you want a video about blood type compatibility, once again, please let me know. It's really interesting. It has to do with the antibodies that our body produces against antigens. Thanks for tuning in and listening to me teach you about ABO blood typing. Go ahead and let me know in the comments what your blood type is if you know it. And also, if you've heard any interesting traits of certain blood types, such as the thing I mentioned earlier about mosquitoes, please let me know what you've heard. Thanks again for watching. Hit that subscribe, leave me a comment. Bye-bye.